The Great Smoky Mountains have so much to offer its locals and visitors in the form of both historical and archaeological experiences. Unfortunately, some of those finds are related to regrettable events. Since the advent of the airplane, there have been 54 crashes in the Smoky Mountains. Even though the majority of these accidents occur due to outstanding circumstances, the Smokies will always be a dangerous place to fly due to the unpredictable conditions that pilots can find themselves navigating through. For example, wind acts abnormal around mountain ranges and valleys, causing there to be unique airflows that could cause issues. Additionally, the weather is wholly unpredictable in the mountains, especially at various elevations. A VFR flight plan could easily be hindered by the smoggy smoke the Smokies are known for, or even a shift in normal cloud cover. Even exceptional pilots can easily fall prey to unforeseen conditions. Our first plane crash we're going to talk about happened in 1984. January 4th, 1984, a U.S. RF Phantom II fighter jet crashed into the Smokies at nearly 500 miles per hour. There were no survivors. Hailing from Sumter, South Carolina, the jet was on a recon mission to take photos. Of what, nobody knows, but the mission ended in disaster. The recovery team found the crash site on Inadu Knob near Old Black Mountain. Rescuers said that the plane impacted the mountain mere feet away from the Appalachian Trail. There was an eyewitness who relayed that she heard a jet in distress and then an explosion, likely from the impact itself. As with any eyewitness, you have to take their account of the event with a grain of salt. To this day, you can still find pieces of that wreckage that was spread over nearly 20 acres of land. However, it would be a moderately difficult hike to get there. Next is the 1946 crash of a B-29 at Clingman's Dome. The B-29 Superfortress was an Army bomber that crashed into Clingman's Dome in the early morning hours of a June night in 1946. With 4 engines and a ceiling of over 30,000 feet, the bomber was impressive by all accounts. That fateful night, the B-29 had been on a night training flight mission prior to the crash. The plane left Tampa, Florida in the early evening on June 11th, with a planned return the next morning on June 12th. On a muggy, cloud-covered night, the Knoxville airport made the last known contact with the plane as it exited its airspace on the way back to Florida. With thunderstorms in the area, a local Sevierville police officer reported an unusually low-flying aircraft passing over in the wee hours of the morning. The peculiar part about this report was that Sevierville wasn't along any normal flight routes for aircraft. Sometime later, as the story goes, the flight began making contact with trees prior to Clingman's Dome, eventually stopping only a few feet from Clingman's Dome Road. The plane skidded to a stop after losing both of its wings and impacting the ground at an unknown speed or trajectory. A fireball ensued as the B-29 was busted into pieces. The crash was found later in the day almost accidentally by public employees. Unfortunately, all 12 of the crew were killed in the crash. While the recovery and salvage team cleaned up most of the wreckage, hikers and visitors claim to have seen small pieces of the plane still on the mountain today. Last on our list is a 1983 crash of a Cessna at Browning Knob. During the winter of 1983, a simple pleasure flight destined for Bryson City ended in disaster. The private pilot flying the Cessna didn't file a flight plan, and it was reported by the FAA that he had a blood alcohol level of .04. Both of these mistakes would combine with weather to cause the crash. What began as a brisk but sunny day shifted ominously into thick clouds and rain. The pilot, unable to get his bearings in the clouds, perhaps due to the flight most likely being VFR, decided to begin dunking underneath the relatively low ceiling of cloud cover. While this strategy worked originally, it quickly became the strategy that killed him. Completely on course, simply low, the plane crashed in Browning Knob, instantly killing both the pilot and the only passenger on board. It took the Civil Air Patrol a week to locate the crash site due to the treacherous winter weather. Despite killing the people inside, the Cessna is largely intact on the mountain today. The forest has spent years doing its own recovery of the plane. If you're interested in reaching the crash, You'll want to start at the Water Rock Knob Trailhead in Sylva, North Carolina, and prepare for a hike that you should not attempt alone. I find it equal parts fascinating and sad to learn about these accidents. Historically, they can give insight into a place that doesn't lend itself very easily to inspection, while also providing context to the billion-year story of the Great Smoky Mountains. As humans have learned ever since they laid eyes on these Smoky Mountains, you can never truly take your safety for granted anywhere above or below these mountains. Always have a plan, always be prepared for multiple outcomes. These plane crashes were ultimately most likely unavoidable, but maybe we can all double check our safety precautions before we venture out into the Great Smoky Unknown.